Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again with Sam Silverstein. I asked, for those who may not know, I live near Kerrville, Texas, which was the epicenter of the floods of July 4th, and they greatly impacted me. And I asked Sam if we could do a webinar where we took accountability and a culture of accountability and Sam's thoughts around accountability and discuss the role of accountability in a disaster. And we're going to focus on business disasters, but we wanted to see if there's a strategic framework for managing disruption. That was the genesis of this webinar. I really wanted to do this, as I told Sam, largely for me, but I hope you will get something out of it as well, because the flood made me realize, or made me focus, that sometimes you may lose everything. And I've lived through natural disasters, I know Sam has as well. And I've seen people lose homes. I've seen people lose various parts of things, but I never see someone lose everything. As I said to our audience, I knew we were going to take a little bit deeper dive into each one of these tenets. And I know Sam is very passionate about pre-crisis preparedness. So Sam, maybe if you could take a little bit deeper dive and actually give some practical steps about what a business leader or a company can think about or think through in the pre-crisis preparedness phase.
This is interesting because we talk about a commitment to the truth. We talk about commitment to the values, commitment to it's all of us. Honest risk assessments, no sugarcoating vulnerabilities. Now, is the sky falling, Tom? It's like when we say an honest risk assessment, let's list everything that could possibly go wrong. And you might say, Sam, that's negative, isn't it? Yeah, I'm trying to be negative in this. I'm trying to list everything that could go wrong and then go, what can we be prepared for? I don't want to live in the negative, but I don't want to ignore it. And so why do you back up your computer? You back up your computer because your hard drive could crash. If you don't back up your computer, eventually when your hard drive does crash, you've lost it all. And so we know that happens. We know that hard drives crash. If we're not backing up our computer, we're negligent. We're negligent to ourselves, to our organization. We're negligent to our employees. Now think about that for a minute. If I'm not backing up the mainframe from my company and I have 100 employees, 1,000, 1,000,000, it doesn't matter what the number is, and we suffer financial loss because I haven't been backing up our computer, I've impacted the lives of everyone in our organization. That's negligent on my part as a leader. And so that to me is part of this pre-crisis preparedness. It's being honest and truthful with ourselves about what can possibly go wrong and how do we mitigate our exposure to that. And so you could, the economy can have a downturn. Orders could decrease by 20%. What sort of financial plans have you put in place for when that happens? What are you doing to make sure that you never have to lay anyone off? Oh, when there's a downturn, we'll just lay people off. So you're just taking the lives of people and their families and you're saying it doesn't matter. They're here to serve us in the good times, and in the tough times, you're on your own. That to me is not being prepared. That is strictly looking out for your own best interests. It's not looking out for the interest of everyone, which is a commitment to it's all of us. So to me, these are all intertwined. It's looking at what can possibly go wrong, looking at history, knowing that history can repeat itself, realizing that you probably financially can't afford to do everything that you could. You can't build a separate backup building to back up your building in a whole different climate. That might be a bit extreme, but I always say look for the edge. Look for the most extreme and then come back from that and find the place where you can mitigate most exposure. That's like insurance. You're mitigating most exposure with your insurance, your home insurance, life insurance, automobile insurance. You can't, health insurance. You can't always eliminate every exposure, but you can position yourself to where even if there is a crisis, you can absorb it. And when you think about your people and you constantly ask the question, how will this affect everyone in our organization? You'll come up with a different set of answers and you'll create a different set of preparedness.
Sam, next, crisis response. And it really struck me in listening to you that we often talk about accountability as relationships and relational. And we talk about our commitments to each other. But in the pre-crisis preparedness, you actually had practical steps where I saw accountability in action. And I see that accountability in action again in your crisis response. So could you take us through how accountability is so critical again, but yet once again with the practical steps we have?
It's what's the leader doing? Is the leader putting their interests before the people? Is the leader off on holiday? Is the leader minimizing what's going on? Or is the leader being just honest about the situation, rolling up their sleeves, getting in the mud, and dealing with the situation? Because that's the kind of leader that I want. That's the kind of leader I want to be associated with. And many times leaders of organizations, they've been drawing a pretty good income. They're financially, if they've been responsible with their resources, they're financially in a good place. So they could go without income for a week, a month, a year. But most of your employees can't. Most people are check to check. They have children, they have families, they have house payments they need to make. They need to feed their babies. What are the leaders doing to put that up front? And that to me is where crisis response is paramount. What are we doing for our people, the people that have generated our success? And many times leaders are right out there, and then sometimes leaders aren't. They make it about them. It's about how great they are, how great they're responding to the situation, or this is a problem because of the leader before. No, stop that. Look at what the issues are that your people are facing and get out there and solve those problems. Not because you want to look good for 10 seconds on Instagram, not because you want to look good on the nightly news, but because your people are hurting and you're there for your people. And I think when you look at it that way, crisis response will go a lot smoother.
Sam, next we have our stabilization phase. And once again, the commitments that you make through accountability and how they help you, how do those translate into some of the practical steps we suggest?
I want to look at truth here because I think this is important. It's very common for today for leaders to just say something, whether it's true or not, so that they can justify making the choices that they're making. And that's self-serving. That's not about the people. And that's not in government, not in business, not in the community, not even in families. And so I think it's time that we really push that we get back to the truth, because that's what hurts us in this stabilization phase. But when you're putting the truth out there, when you're making ethical decisions, when you're standing by your people, then even if the news is bad news, but you're being honest about it and you're showing what you're doing with it, I feel like that brings people together. But if we just flood untruths out there, it never brings people together. And so you don't successfully navigate through the stabilization. And I think that when your decisions are connected to your values and the facts are the truth, whether that's good news or bad news, but it's the truth, then I think people see that and they respect you for that.
Sam, I'd like to draw your attention, number one, under the practical steps, because for a large part of this webinar, we have talked about the relationships you have inside of an organization, leaders to employees to leaders, employees to each other. But here we take a look at externals, which are suppliers and customers. And you've certainly run a business where you depended on raw supplies, and you've certainly run a business where you depended on customers for sales. Could you say a few words about the role of accountability for stakeholders who may be outside of your organization, and maybe even not why it's so critical, but how it can be literally such a market differentiator if you have accountability with external stakeholders to your organization.
So that's a brilliant question, Tom. And I used to be a partner in a window door manufacturing business. There is one commodity that you have to make a window. You want to guess what that is?
It's not sugar.
Nope. It's glass. Got to have glass. You can't make a window without glass. You got to have glass. So no matter what framing material you're using, no matter how you're assembling it, all that stuff's great. But if you don't have a sheet of glass, how do you make a window? There was a time in where glass was in short supply. There was a shortage of glass. Now, we always discounted our bills. We wanted to make sure we paid our suppliers not just promptly, super promptly. We wanted them to know that we had their backs because cash flow is important in a business. And when glass became not a commodity but a scarcity, then the suppliers that we had taken care of in our relationship with them were always there to take care of us. And we might have been pulling the last sheet of glass out of a pallet of glass when a truck backed up to the dock with 10 more pallets on that truck. But we never ran out. It might have gotten close, but we never ran out. They never let us run out. We had their back all the time. We paid their bills. We made sure to take care of them. They had our back. That's accountability. That's standing by each other. And then some new supplier comes in and wants to sell us a few pennies less. We're not going to switch to that new supplier because our supplier always had our back. We're going to continue to have their back. And when you build relationships like that, then those become truly valuable relationships because you're there to take care of each other. Now think about that, how that plays out internally in a business as well as externally. How does that play in the community? What would happen? Tom, what would happen if everyone truly had everyone's back? Think about the impact that would have in society. And I don't think that's that difficult. But people don't always think that way necessarily.
And then we move to recovery and rebuild. And as I said, when we went through the list of all four of these, I saw, to me, most clearly accountability in this. But I think some of the practical steps really drive that message home and show how even in the worst of disasters, you can move forward in a way that will be positive at the end of the day. How do you see all this in terms of some of the practical steps, Sam?
Yeah, I think you've got it nailed. And I think this is about lessons learned and trust, okay? If we just go back and rebuild and let the flood come get us again, if we go back and operate our business in the same way and let the same economic issues get us again, then we're not being responsible, not for ourselves. We're not being responsible for everyone that's involved in the organization. And so you want to reinforce trust, stay with the truth, be transparent, communicate every step of the way, and truly be there for your people. That builds that trust. And when that trust is high, then the people are always going to be there for you. A relationship is never one way. A relationship, a good relationship, is always a two-way relationship. Either side is looking to be there for the other side. And when you do, that's accountability in action. And that means that people are going to go, whoa, let's not redo this the same way because we could have the same problem again. And leadership is listening, and leadership is communicating the decisions that they're making. And so a lot of times leaders want to hold the power. You know, the small leader thinks that it's all about the power. The big leader really knows it's not about controlling the power. It's about understanding what the vision and mission is, and then empowering your people to make that happen. And when you create those kinds of relationships, then I really believe that you're laying the foundation for a solid recovery. You're rebuilding for the future. And then you're positioning your organization to be better prepared the next time a tangible situation presents itself.
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day. One actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.